Good morning, world, and welcome to the Patriot Party show, where truth meets every corner of the news. I'm Matt, your host, and I'm so glad to be kicking off the weekend with all you guys and gals. Every Saturday, we bring you the week's biggest stories: politics, world affairs, finance, tech, sports, celebrity buzz, and entertainment. If you've tried the mainstream spin and you're tired of it, hit that subscribe button, join the movement, and be part of the conversation shaping America's future. Now let's jump right in. Appeals court allows Trump to deploy National Guard troops to Portland. U.S. District Judge Karen Emmergut, a Trump appointee, blocked the administration from taking over the state's National Guard. But the administration attempted to sidestep the order by calling in troops from other states. Emmergut then blocked deployment of any National Guard troops across the state in a second order. The appeals panel wrote Monday that Trump may have reasons for calling up the National Guard that were not shared publicly or tied solely to the scene on the ground in Portland. Now, this is in quotation. Even if the president may exaggerate the extent of the problem on social media, this does not change that other facts provide a colorable basis to support the statutory requirements. The order reads, this is also in quotations. I'm sort of trying to figure out how a district court of any nature is supposed to get in and question whether the president's assessment of executing the laws is right or wrong, said Judge Ryan Murphy, also a Trump appointee. Murphy later commented that the decision to send in the troops was an internal one, and that both small and large protests could impede Trump's ability to execute the law. Unfortunately, there are activist judges on the right and the left. At the Patriot Party, we don't want to see armed military patrolling our city's streets. That is local law enforcement's job, and this is wide latitude granted by these appellate judges per the Insurrection Act, a very ambiguous law to start with. And it is the reason that we say ambiguous laws lead to bureaucratic overreach and judicial activism. Now, to the next story. How will tariffs affect holiday toy shopping? This year has been marked by economic uncertainty for shoppers and businesses alike, with rapidly fluctuating tariffs impacting many industries' supply chains, but few as acutely as the toy industry. And this is because the majority of its products, 80%, according to the Toy Association, are made in China. Paired with waffling consumer confidence that hit new lows in September, lackluster job reports, and the threat of additional tariffs on Chinese imports. The path ahead for this key consumer gifting category is even less clear heading into the holidays. At the Patriot Party, we have been very critical of Trump's use of tariffs, especially the closing of the $800 loophole, which many companies and people relied on for goods and gifts. I believe as the holiday season approaches and tariffs start to really hit people in the pocketbook, many will start to agree with our stance on tariffs. Now, Trump may be able to alleviate some of the pressures caused by tariffs if he follows through with what he said he would do. Trump said the federal government will, and this is quotations, probably provide some tariff revenue, also in quotations, over the next fairly short period of time to Americans who most economists say bear the majority of tariff cost. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm expecting higher prices, but I have been off on some of the reports. And we have been off on some of the reports. So only time will tell. But we have been critical of the use of it since Liberation Day. So we'll just see. So the next story, and this is in Washington. President Trump said late Thursday he was terminating trade negotiations with Canada, pointing to a television advertisement sponsored by the Ontario government that features the voice of Ronald Reagan as he speaks negatively about tariffs. Now, based on their egregious behavior, this is Trump's words, based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated, Trump wrote on social media shortly before 11 p.m. The Ontario government aired a television ad featuring Ronald Reagan's voice criticizing tariffs. But it was his voice. It was a quote from his actual voice from April 25th in 1987. It was a radio address to the nation on free and fair trade. In that speech, Reagan said tariffs, and this is in quotation, so this is what he said, hurt every American worker and consumer and inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. So Reagan was an advocate for free trade. Now, y'all know at the Patriot Party, we don't affiliate with any political parties. That way we don't have an agenda. So it doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left or anywhere in between. If you're doing wrong, we're going to call you out. That said, grow up, Trump. You fraudulently said on television that all the world leaders were kissing your ass to make a deal after Liberation Day. But they fight back by using the very words of your supposed mentor because you do consider yourself a modern day Reagan and you can't handle it. You know, two sayings come to mind. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, and don't throw stones if you live in a glass house. And you know, another one comes to my mind right now, off the cuff. It's no fun when the rabbit's got the gun. So, you know, grow up, Trump. They're literally trying to fight you with somebody that you say you take after's own words. I don't see the big deal, and I don't see why you would terminate it and say it's egregious. It's egregious. What's egregious about the man's own words? Now, the Reagan Center also spoke out against this and said, well, they didn't have permission. Well, you know what? Okay. But there's still no egregiousness because it's not fake. That's what was being put out by the White House. This is fake. This is no. He said it. I gave you the date he said it. So what? Get over it. They're using something that was said. They're not lying about anything. So there was a massive anti-Trump protest, and it swept across the U.S. under the No Kings movement, with over 7 million participants in 2,600 locations. One of the biggest days of protest against the Trump administration's policies, and it happened last Saturday in cities around the U.S. The overriding theme of the marches was the accusation that President Trump is behaving more like a monarch than an elected official. In a lot of ways, I mean, people are right, but it's not just Trump. It is both parties. Both parties. Just look. I mean, this is a prime example of a guy who was almost vice president. I mean, we don't have to look any further than the last administration, but just look at what Senator Tim Kaine said about government. They grant us our rights. We don't have rights. It's the government that gives us to us. That's the same thing the monarch said. These parties, they no longer respect that they serve we the people. They serve themselves and they think they are above us and they grant us. No, we grant you your power. We elected you and granted you and placed you in that position of power. And you people have let it go to your head and run rampshod and not follow the Constitution for a very long time. As American citizens, we are granted the right to peacefully protest and peacefully assemble per the Constitution. So, as long as protests stay peaceful, per the Patriot Party's 3Ps, which are available on our website, there's a link in the description, thepatriotparty.us. We rule this constitutional as long as it stays peaceful. Republican senators are balking at the Trump administration's decision to cut off transportation funding to Democratic-leaning states such as New York and Massachusetts during the government shutdown, warning that freezing funds as an apparent act of political retaliation is not appropriate. Republican senators are unified in the view that Democrats are wrong to hold government funding hostage in order to win major health policy concessions. I don't see how it's right to hold the government hostage with all these employees who have families trying to push an agenda. The government budget, in the Patriot Party's opinion, should not, either party, hold the government hostage to try to pass policy. That, to us, is a no-no. But the Republicans, they still feel uncomfortable about halting transportation funding to certain states because they're represented by Democrats. This could be interpreted as a violation of the spending clause and potentially the equal protection clause of the 14th Amendment. Federal funds are meant to be distributed based on need, law, and policy, not political affiliation. Targeting states for their political leanings undermines the idea that all Americans are entitled to fair treatment under federal programs. Per the Patriot Party principles, we rule this unconstitutional. Now, NASA and their director right now, Duffy, suggest they could ditch Elon Musk's SpaceX for the moon landing. He says they're way behind schedule. Elon Musk SpaceX won the contract in 2021 to provide landing equipment for the Artemis 3 project. Duffy, who also serves as acting NSA, or excuse me, not NSA, NASA administrator, said NASA was not going to wait for any company, and he was in the process of opening the contract with SpaceX up to the competition like Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin. It surprises me, as on point as Elon Musk usually is, that he is behind like this. I have to ask myself, does this have anything to do, because they were talking about canceling contracts when Trump and Musk had their falling out. So I have to ask myself, is this a product of that? So there's a few more things to highlight before we get to some different kind of news. First, the White House East Wing demolition, which they say it's no longer there, the East Wing is gone, has sparked a lot of controversy after views of the site were blocked from public access. I also read that it was over budget. It was supposed to originally be $200 million. Now it's $300 million. But supposedly the taxpayers are not paying for this. So we'll just have to keep reporting on information as it comes out and see where it leads us. Beef prices have surged nationwide due to supply chain disruptions and feed cost inflation. President Trump warned Israel that U.S. support would end if it annexed the West Bank. Redistricting efforts by Republicans have raised concern over voter disenfranchisement, particularly among black communities. But you know what? Both major parties, including Democrats, have used gerrymandering to sway voting outcomes. And while it can be challenged in court, it's not unconstitutional unless it violates specific legal standards. Jack Smith, special counsel investigating Trump, offered to testify publicly about the probe. And Letitia James pleads not guilty in the mortgage fraud case. Judge sets January 26th trial date for Democratic New York Attorney General. It's like we said about FBI Director Comey. It's really nice these people are getting such a speedy trial, unlike all the J6ers who unconstitutionally sat in jail for years awaiting a speedy trial. But they want us to say justice, not just us. No, it still sounds like just us. Even if you're on the wrong side of the political spectrum, it still seems like just us, not justice. So let's get to some world news. President Trump has announced substantial new sanctions on Russia's two biggest oil companies as frustration in Washington grows over the war in Ukraine. Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell said Friday that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered the Navy's most advanced aircraft carrier, which was deployed in the Mediterranean, to the U.S. Southern Command area of responsibility to help, this is in quotations, dismantle transnational criminal organizations. And the government's got to come up with an acronym, so they're calling them TCOs, and counter narco-terrorism in defense of the homeland. Gaza shows signs of recovery after the October 10th ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, though unexploded ordnance remains a threat. In Zimbabwe, the influx of secondhand Western clothing is crippling the local textile industry. Colombia and the U.S. clashed diplomatically over strikes on alleged drug trafficking boats. And guys and gals, this is crazy. So in Paris, tourists were streaming in to the world's most visited museum, the Louvre, on Sunday when a group of thieves burst in through a window of a gilded gallery on the second floor. Now, I read that they used some elevator truck, right? And then they made off with a set of priceless royal jewels in broad daylight. They come in on a truck that lifts them and they go in through the second floor, and then they leave on motorcycles. We just finished watching the show, me and my wife, Animal Kingdom. And I said, you know what? This reminds me of some elaborate job those brothers would pull. That's just crazy that they got off with that. So before we get to financial news, let's talk about financial freedom. At the Patriot Party, we only back what we've tested ourselves. That's why we're proud to endorse Openvest, an America First company giving everyday Americans access to the same investments the top 1% get. Starting with just $300, take your financial freedom back. Link and promo code for free money to invest, if you're a Patriot Party listener, are in the description for this Saturday Updates podcast. Please click through and take advantage, because this is one heck of a company offering one heck of a service to the Americans who are the backbone of this country, the blue collar workers, the middle class Americans, the people that make up the backbone of this country. And this is geared for them, not those top 1%. So take advantage of it. So let's get on to some financial news. Social Security cost of living adjustment rises to 2.8% for 2026. So y'all that get Social Security will get you a little bump. Target is slashing corporate workforce after quarter of stagnant sales. Retailer will lay off 1,000 global corporate employees and cut 800 open roles, with 80% of the cuts coming from within the U.S. U.S. markets rallied to record highs, driven by strong corporate earnings, tech optimism, the deal with inflation, easing bank fears. So the market did pretty good. The Federal Reserve's Beige Book reported subdued economic activity across districts. China's GDP data and U.S. inflation readings are expected to influence global market direction. And banking stocks rebounded, with Zions Bancorp reporting higher Q3 profits despite recent loan concerns. Let's get into some tech news. This first story is real cool. You've lived long enough to see the age of flying cars. Privately owned, solo piloted aircraft, free to operate in unrestricted airspace, much as automobiles can take to the open road. And they're all electric. We call them ultralight EVTOLs. You know the acronyms. EVTOLS, electric vehicle takeoff and landing vehicles. That's a mouthful. So I don't know what the price range is, but they look pretty cool. Broadcom and OpenAI signed a deal to expand AI infrastructure. That AI is booming right now. I mean, the stocks. I mean, it is the future. So my advice is don't be scared of it. Embrace it in a responsible manner. I saw the other day where they're doing new Chat GDP Adult, where you can kind of sexually design your own bot, which I think is unneeded. But whatever, we're all adults. AMD and Oracle announced a strategic partnership amid rising semiconductor demands. Google will phase out call-only ads by February 2026, shifting to call assets and responsive search ads. Microsoft launched Bing Places for businesses, enhancing local SEO tools. Agritech Week 2025 showcased innovations in substantial farming, from gene editing to satellite agronomy. Whatever that is, it sounds fancy. Let's get to some celebrity news and gossip. So, Limp Bizkit's bassist Sam Rivers died at 48. Ex-NFLer Doug Martin died at 36. TikTok star Emin Atinza died at 19. What is up with all these people dying at such a young age? It's so sad. Former NFL All-Pro running back Doug Martin died in police custody after he was involved in a break-in at an Oakland residence, police said. Jennifer Lawrence, Scarlett Johansson, and Mark Hamill appeared at major film fests all over. Anne Hathaway and Gigi Hadid shared a moment at a New York gala, while Selena Gomez joined Jennifer Hudson's show. Jessica Simpson confirmed her split from Eric Johnson after 10 years of marriage. Khloe Kardashian, Grimes, and Joe Jonas made headlines for personal revelations. We've had some drama in sports this week. We have had some drama. Let's get to sports. So first off, the NCAA approved a rule change on Wednesday that will allow athletes and athletic department staff members to bet on professional sports on November 1st. I mean, if everybody else can, and then maybe I don't know about them betting on their own team, but I mean, if that's your home team, whatever. What really caused the drama is the next story, and we're speaking of gambling. The NBA head coach was charged in a illegal poker scheme tied to organized crime. Portland coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier were arrested and named in an indictment of more than 30 people as part of a sweeping investigation into illegal betting and game rigging in the NBA. The NBA games allegedly involved fake injury and leaked info in gambling scandal. And as the story unfolds, we find out the rigged poker games that used NBA stars and James Bond tech to steal millions. They had hidden cameras, x-ray tables, and a Hall of Famer as bait. Wow. That is a heck of an extravagant operation, but I mean, they're talking about millions. And it was connected to organized crime. I've even seen some stories published and say the mob. I don't know if organized crime automatically refers to the mob, but that's what the headlines were for some places. I didn't see any backing to say the mob, so we're going to go with organized crime. But it may be the mob. Sixers rookie VJ Edgecombe lit up the Celtics with 34 points on Wednesday night, the most in an NBA debut since Wilt Chamberlain had 43 in 1959. As the Sixers won 117 to 116. That was an edge of the seat game. Edge of the seat game. Texas A&M became the first SEC football program to receive a $50,000 fine from the conference for violating its policy on players faking injuries in games. With Toronto trailing Seattle by 2 runs in Game 7 on Monday night at Rogers Center, George Springer hit a 3-run home run that rallied the Blue Jays past the Mariners 4-3 and into the World Series. So the Blue Jays are in the World Series. The Detroit Lions defeated the Buccaneers 24-9 Monday Night Football despite missing key defensive players. Pretty impressive. Seattle Seahawks beat the Texans, showcasing dominant defense. And in WWE, Seth Rollins was stripped of his title due to injury. CM Punk versus Jey Uso set for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship. And also, Beck Lynch retained her Women's Intercontinental title against Maxine Dupree in WWE. Let's get to some new movies. Param Sundari, Amazon Prime Video. It's a romantic comedy starring Siddharth Malhotra. Y'all know how I am with names. And Janvi Kapoor. They call him OG. That's on Netflix. Action crime saga with Pawan Kalyan in a samurai-style gangster role. A House of Dynamite, Netflix thriller starring Idris Elba and Rebecca Ferguson. I don't know if I pronounced his name right, but I know exactly who they're talking about with that actor, Idris, and he usually plays some pretty good parts. Mirage, put out by Sony Live. It's a suspense drama by Jethu Joseph. The Hand That Rocks a Cradle on Hulu, a psychological thriller remake. I actually watched that this week. It was pretty good. It definitely veered from the first one, so the remake is definitely different. It's worth watching. New TV shows, and we're to watch them. Nobody Wants This Season 2, Netflix. Kristen Bell and Adam Brody return in a romantic comedy or dramedy, romantic dramedy. The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, Season 2. Netflix continues the saga in France. 911 Lone Star, Season 5 on Hulu. Final season with high-stakes rescues and personal drama. Stumble, NBC, new drama joining the fall lineup. Sheriff County and Boston Blue, CBS, expansions of Fire Country and Blue Bloods universes. We got the pick of the week, y'all. We got the pick of the week, and this week we are going to pick the show Halo. It's a science fiction action series based on the iconic Xbox video game franchise, and you can stream it now on Netflix. It's set in the 26th century. Halo follows Master Chief, a genetically enhanced super soldier, a real bad you-know-what, as he leads humanity's fight against a powerful alien alliance known as the Covenant. The show blends military drama, deep lore, and high-stakes space warfare, exploring themes of identity, loyalty, and survival. And remember, you can get that on Netflix. So that's a wrap for this week's Patriot Party show. Remember, truth isn't partisan, it's patriotic. Stay safe, stay informed, and check out thepatriotparty.us for more updates, interviews, and movement news. And we have a bunch of exciting interviews with some really big names planned for the next month. So make sure you you subscribe, you check our site. I'm Matt signing off. See you next Saturday right here where truth meets every corner of the news.